Do medical coders get audited? In most situations, yes, but how that looks can vary depending on the organization. Coders might get audited monthly, quarterly, yearly, maybe just during their introductory period. They might not get audited at all, or they might just get audited when they suspect there's a problem. So who is auditing medical coders? Well, it depends on the organizations. Sometimes it's your supervisor or your manager. Sometimes there is a dedicated team of quality specialists or auditors, or there might be an external audit going on by Medicare or by a healthcare organization, an insurance company. And what that coder is coding is going to get encompassed in that external audit. So depending on who is doing it and the organization, it could look very, very different. If it's your boss, sometimes they might do something very informal. They might just monthly pick 5 cases and go, yeah, I looked at these. They look okay. You're doing great. Or it could be a very formalized process. As someone who's worked in billing and coding and auditing, I've done audits primarily on providers, but I've done a lot of audits specifically targeted to coders as well, or sometimes they're just mixed. Sometimes there's a practice where maybe the provider is submitting their own evaluation and management services, but there's a coder coding their surgeries. And as an auditor, I'm just picking a mix. It's time for maybe their quarterly or bi-yearly audit, and I'm picking a just random mix of surgeries and a random mix of E&M to encompass everything that is going out the door, because we want to check on that for compliance reasons. It's not entirely unlike production. So if you're working in a factory, you're not going to look at maybe every single item that's going on the conveyor belt, but you're going to randomly select ones to make sure that they're the right size or shape or put together correctly. And if you're seeing a higher percentage of defects from that small sample, you might want to do a more elaborate look and determine what is causing those defects. And it's not always the provider or coder. Sometimes it's a situation with the EMR, or, there's just so many complex regulations and coding nuances that it's very difficult for someone to remember all of them, even with the assistance of tools and encoders and edits in the system to help out. I always found it very interesting in healthcare when I would go through lean management training, and people who were such experts at lean management in something like a Toyota factory or a production method or in a retail method would come into the healthcare spectrum and just be so entirely blown away and overwhelmed that they can't take something that worked for manufacturing and just implant it into healthcare because of just how intense and nuanced and regulated the industry is versus other industries. Audit activity is normal, internal and external. It's not that anyone is just going, oh, those darn coders, they don't know what they're doing. They're losing us money. We better check what they're doing. It really is just a normal part of the revenue cycle. But sometimes it can get a little bit messy. I was working primarily in surgical coding and once got an audit that was all targeted towards E&M, and I only coded a few E&Ms a month. But it was easier, I think, for that auditing team, since they knew E&M better, for them to target my E&Ms versus having to look at my very complex surgeries and scrutinize them. And yeah, even I've had crummy audits in the past and beat myself up and cried over that. And I've also had to deliver bad audit results as well to providers and coders. It's a very delicate balance to present the results as they lie versus trying to tiptoe or dance around things or accuse anyone. I think I've mentioned in the past that I do have a bit of a sterile tactic when I'm auditing, like this was what was submitted, this was what I found, this is the backing, these are the results, period. And then have those conversations and determine from that, where can we make some corrective maneuvers? Because you don't want to come off and go, oh, well, you did this wrong and you need to do it right. This is the right way to do it, only to find out that maybe they were following a protocol that was new, or maybe they hadn't gotten information that the changes had been made to some of the regulations, or maybe even that the EMR was at fault. In most cases, people aren't intentionally trying to cause mistakes. And if you're wondering, do the auditors get audited? Sometimes, yeah. When I was a senior coder and then a supervisor of coding, that was kind of what I did. I screened all of the audits before they went out the door. The auditors would email them to me. I'd look at them and go, okay, maybe we should tweak one or two things. And if we felt like we were going to have passes back and forth, we'd sit down and have a conversation with it instead of sending 50 billion email trains back and forth. And then we'd get everything fine-tuned and agreed upon so we could send it out the door to the provider, because you definitely want to make sure that you have all of your ducks in a row before you send something out to the provider. Now, for our more seasoned auditors, I didn't look at stuff for them unless they had a question. They went, hey, Victoria, can you take a second look at this? I just want another set of eyes on it. So while we don't want to be in this endless loop or an inception where we're doing audits of audits of audits, auditors do have bosses, and those bosses do critique their work as well. And being an auditor is a tough job. It's hard to know every single nuance of every single specialty, every insurance policy, every different, CPT assistant that's out there. So if you're a coder and you get something from an auditor that you know is not right, you can give that feedback to the auditor and go, hey, look, this is the guidance that I've been coding off of. Can you take another look at this based off of this guidance? It is so hard as a coder not to take things personally because we take such pride in our work and we evaluate and we scrutinize and we read all these regulations and read and reread these reports, and we think we're getting it right to the best of our ability, and for someone to come back and go, nope, that's wrong, it's very jarring. The best thing you can do is just not be defensive about it. Just look at the things matter-of-factly. Here is what this report looked like. Here is what I coded. Here is what the audit is stating. And look at things again in a very unbiased manner. I have seen coders really go on the offense, and they'll give this to a friend and another friend and then another supervisor and their old teacher from school and go, I want you to look at this because my audit said this, and what do you think of this, and what do you think of this? And they'll waste hours and hours and hours of their time beating themselves up trying to figure out solutions, when really, if they'd have just sat down, looked at it with a complete clear conscience, had the conversation with the auditor, it would have saved hours of frustration and time and would have really had a better mental clarity for them as well. And if you need some tools to have better audit results, let me tell you about FindACode. FindACode is a very simple, user-friendly, pleasant interface that allows you to have very intuitive searches for medical coding, for diagnoses, for procedures, for things like late terms, your NCCI edits, and all those different crucial tools you need as a medical coder. And not only does it provide me with a ton of tips and survival guides, but I can make my own notes as well. FindACode is available to purchase on a monthly or annual basis, and if you use my code CONTEMPO10, you can take 10% off your purchase. And you can head over to FindACode.com and get your free demo today. So why do we have internal audits? Well, we have internal audits because we also have external audits. We need to have all of those checks and balances. The last thing we want is Medicare to come knocking and we have absolutely no idea what's going on, that we had all of these errors because we didn't do internal audits. Healthcare in general, not just billing and coding and revenue cycle, can be very, very complex, and there is a ton of money on the line, not just meaning money, but also like the money that we need to take care of our community, and sometimes even things like provider licenses can be on the line. So I'm interested to know, have you managed to escape audits as a medical coder, or do you get audited and you recognize them as a necessary evil? If you do, definitely let me know in the comments below. By the way, if you're interested in becoming a medical coding auditor, you can find out more with this video, or you can go to contempocoding.com and check out my CPMA course. I'll also include a coupon discount in the video description. I will see you guys in the next video, and until then, just keep on coding on.